Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. I am told I'll be joined shortly by my colleagues, and hopefully I'll be here in a few minutes. It's Tuesday, October 21st at the Edward R. Roybal Hearing Room. I like saying that, Edward R. Roybal. But I don't want to jinx this agenda, but we do have some items that we can go through. Those of you that are in the audience, this will be the direction of some of the agenda items that are on our consent calendar. As I get a quorum, we'll move these agenda items. We do have speaker cards on items number 3, 8, and 9. So those will be called special. Item number 2 will continue to December 2nd. Item number 4 will continue to November 18th.
In council, December 2nd.
In council, December 2nd. Number 5 will put on the consent calendar, seeing no cards. Number 6 and 7 on consent as well. Number 8 and 9, we do have cards on those particular items. 10, we don't have a report today, and we don't have a report on 11 as well. So we will not be hearing a report on items 10 and 11. I'm speaking extra slow to buy time. What we could do is begin item number 1 and hear from the staff. And before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Alex Baum. Mr. Baum, would you like to stand up and let's give him a round of applause? Mr. Baum, please stand. Mr. Baum has been one of the champions, the anchor for the city when it comes to advocating for the whole alternative transportation we know as bicycles. And he has been instrumental in keeping the whole bicycle movement in the city in front of many of my colleagues. He has been involved for over 20 years, I believe, over 30 years, and has never given up on changing the culture of this great city that might suggest that we could use bicycles to get around the city. So he has been a strong advocate. Those of you who understand the Los Angeles River and its current bike path, there's a tremendous bridge called the Alex Baum Bike Bridge that crosses over Los Feliz, right next to Griffin Park. So Mr. Baum, again, thank you so much. You're one of the unsung heroes when it comes to changing the culture of this city and actually having bicycles as an alternative mode of transportation. Thank you, sir. So with that, I'd like to invite our staff to present to the committee on item number 1.
Roberto, would you read item 1, please?
Sure. Councilman, item 1 is a DOT report. It's in response to a motion Reyes-Gruel relative to the Bicycle Advisory Committee. And the T Committee heard this item and approved the DOT recommendations on September 24th.
Thank you, sir.
Michelle Mallory, Department of Transportation. I'm the city's bicycle coordinator.
Jordan Turner, Department of City Planning.
I'll give you a little bit of history on the committee, where we are in the recommendations back from Transportation Committee.
If you can do your best to speak into the microphone, we'll
Sure.
hear you a lot better.
I know this room is kind of tough.
The acoustics are rather harsh here.
And I'll try and speak slowly, which I'm not so good at, but nonetheless. Mayor Bradley in 1973, at the urging of Mr. Baum, actually started the city's Bicycle Advisory Committee. Alex has been the chairman since 1973 and has served for 35 years as a member of the committee. The committee is made up of appointees from each of the council districts and 4 appointees from the mayor's office. So it's a standing committee of 19 members. They are advisory in nature, and they are essentially to make recommendations to the city regarding bicycling as a mode of transportation and recreation in the city, and advise staff and the city of how we should go about making bikes a better mode of transportation. We have an ongoing attendance record that we've been following up on, and the committee is actually going to be issuing attendance as a part of its ongoing minutes, as was discussed in one of the earlier meetings, so that's already happening. We are going through ongoing review and comments of, the Bicycle Advisory Committee actually took one of their entire meetings to talk about the recommendations in the council motion to make recommendations. Those are listed within your report. And we currently have these recommendations from Department of Transportation as amended by the Transportation Committee. Currently, DOT and Recreation and Parks are being recommended to jointly staff the Bicycle Advisory Committee with city planning staff assigned where appropriate. That the BAC will continue to be comprised of 19 members without alternates, with 1 member appointed by each council member and 4 appointed by the mayor. DOT is looking to unfreeze 1 position to provide support to the committee. The original recommendation was support staff, maybe from the city clerk in an administrative role, but DOT is committed to looking for an unfreeze to go ahead and staff 1 of their positions to support the committee on an administrative basis. We are also looking that the committee will establish a new policy for selection of the chairman. The chairman is currently selected by the mayor. The recommendation would be at this point that the committee self-select a chairman. Beginning in February, Chairman Baum would serve his term to the end of the year, and the new committee would select a new member to serve for 2 years. Our recommendation has been 2 years rather than 1, as the committee has 6 regular meetings throughout the year. Also selecting a vice chair at the same time to serve and support and fill in the role of the chair while they're gone. The motion also directs public work to assign staff to address issues of bicyclists. DOT certainly has responsibility for striping the roadways. We also work on the major bicycle path projects, but we don't maintain the roadways, nor are we responsible for pothole repair and street trees and things like that, which certainly affect bicyclists. We've also requested that the city attorney be supportive and provide more assistance.
You could slow down just a little bit. Just a little bit.
This
We
is
want to
slow.
digest the good work you're doing here.
This is slow for me. To city attorney to help us a little bit more with the Brown Act. The committee is, as a council-appointed body, is subject to the Brown Act. And as we are engineers and bicyclists, the Brown Act is certainly not our purview, but we are working to ensure that the meetings are publicly noticed and we meet all the requirements of the Brown Act. The 8th recommendation is that council recognize Chairman Baum for his 35 years of service and make him Chairman Emeritus. And then the last item from the Transportation Committee is that DOT has been instructed to report back to the T Committee in 6 months with a progress report.
Great, great. And I think that's a great suggestion to have Mr. Baum as our Chairman Emeritus. He truly deserves that recognition, that respect for the loyalty he has given to the city and the bicyclists in the region. I am encouraged by the amount of progress that is occurring. I know we've been having these discussions going back, I think, 13 years when we were talking about the bicycle paths along the river back in the early 90s. So to see more of a citywide movement pick up a sense of energy and to see my colleagues motivated to move more policies is very important. I know Councilmember Gruhl has asked for a 6-month status report after the motion is adopted in order to see how implementation is proceeding. I look forward to the updates on your progress on that. I did put together a motion last year that spoke to a range of products that we hope to see as a demonstration project in District 1. So there's many demands being placed upon the unit and you've got a lot of pressure building up. If you could describe the low-hanging fruit, if you will, what do you think we could see first in terms of implementation?
The old plan, the first plan adopted, well, there was an initial plan, but it wasn't much of a plan. But council really did the first comprehensive plan that was part of the general plan in 1996. And it really looked at that point, and bicycle planning was in its infancy across the country as well as in the city. But that plan really looked at some policies that we should begin implementation. That was when I just started with the city. But it also looked at the arterial roadways, the major boulevards, and how we could install bicycle lanes, as well as the big path opportunities, the Los Angeles River, additional segments of the beach bicycle path, ongoing work on Bayona Creek, works that we're doing on some of the MTA right-of-ways with San Fernando Road bicycle path, as well as the project that we did on Chandler on the Orange Line bike path. So it really looked at some of those big sorts of projects. This new bicycle plan has a real different element. We're still looking at the big right-of-ways and implementing those big projects and bicycle lanes throughout the city on the arterials, but we've added a collector network, or a network of smaller streets that we can do that make more bike-friendly, to enhance the bicycle use through a number of treatments, from very low elements as simple as signage to very high-end elements as traffic diversion, moving cars out of those corridors, or traffic calming measures. So there are a number of treatments we can look at. We've asked the consultant to, and we have an early map, but asked the consultant to identify those corridors to link us up with the existing network and what we want to continue to do.
Great. So the notion of bike boulevards, alternative bike paths that are safer, and identifying those routes, is that a process? Where do you see that moving within the community plan process, or do you have your own process? I just want to get a feeling for how do you see that product rolling out?
And how we start. It's going to be, we don't have a number in mileage of how many miles are going to be recommended for this collector network, if you will. And a bicycle boulevard in the public's eyes means a number of things. It's not a standardized facility. Almost everybody knows what a bicycle path is, like next to the river or the beach. Almost everybody knows what a bike lane is on the street. But a bicycle boulevard is a relatively new concept that actually started in Palo Alto, and the city of Berkeley has a network, and there are a few being done in other cities throughout the area. Long Beach is actually pushing quite a few things across now. There will be, with the new map, literally hundreds of short corridors that are identified for as a collector or a future bike boulevard or a street that can be enhanced for bicycle use. A bicycle boulevard in the city of Palo Alto, as it was developed, was really a diversionary tactic. The idea was that there was a long corridor that paralleled their major boulevard that split the campus, the city of Palo Alto, from the campus of Stanford. It's a major state highway that's 6 lanes. I think it's posted 45, but the traveling speeds are more like 55, and they needed a parallel way to do it. And they used this roadway that was parallel to it and made it work for bicycles. So you had bicycle and motor vehicle through traffic for several blocks, and as the roadway characteristics changed or became more residential, the traffic was diverted back onto the arterial roadway, and motors were not allowed to go through and bicyclists continued. That is a true bicycle boulevard where you divert traffic. It's a controversial concept in that you need buy-in from the neighborhood, and everybody needs to agree that this is a way to go ahead and do this. So we have collector streets that'll work already. We can go ahead and sign them as a part of the collector network, but some of them will need to identify as huge corridors that can serve that very high-end bike boulevard need.
Is there, at what point do council offices, along with the mayor, begin to see this implementation? Is that a policy decision that has to be made by us, a recommendation by yourselves as the folks who are putting together this plan? I mean, what's the next step?
I think staff is going to begin implementation immediately.
Okay.
Staff is already looking at some projects as potential. We certainly recognize that CD1 is one of the forerunners in wanting to see a project come to their district quickly. As I said, we have just gotten the map from the consultant. It's going to go through several generations of revision before we have an accurate map that we can take back to the public.
Great.
But we'd like to identify a few corridors that we can start on in this bicycle boulevard concept or collector network concept and see which are the key ones that we can start with. Maybe they're being discussed already within the council districts, and start to be ready to move forward on that once the document is adopted next year.
And just last question, in terms of the Alley River Bikeway, I know we just finished the last parcel, we took care of the legal issues. Is there a time frame, and how soon can we see it realized?
We actually think we're going to go to construction early next year. We had a right-of-way problem, 70-plus
Right.
parcels out there that we had to deal with. We actually ended up in court to deal with the final parcel. That was
Like
last
4 years
January.
of court stuff?
There was a trial, and the gentleman who had the one remaining parcel was looking for more money than real
Okay.
estate had determined was the assessed value. There were a few more $1,000s exchanged, but it was pretty close to the original assessed value of the property. We have been dealing with lighting concerns. I believe we actually would already be in construction if we didn't have a problem with the copper theft that's going on citywide. Almost all of the lighting system on LA River has gone through not one but 2 rounds of copper theft. We have over $200,000 worth of damage out there. So we've been investigating other lighting alternatives to be able to go to construction on. We've been looking at solar, but due to the amount of landscaping out there, we can't get enough light on it. So we either remove trees or we stay with the standard lighting system. BSL's been actually working pretty hard on a test. If you're familiar with what our light posts look like out there, it's kind of a standard electrolier with a box at each end where the wires are pulled through. After the first amount of vandalism, those boxes were welded shut. So the vandals actually came through and broke all the pull boxes as well. He essentially took a sledgehammer to all of them. What BSL has done now in the test case, they have 4 test sites out on the river right now. They have put it's probably a 2-foot by 2-foot by 2-foot cube of concrete and buried the box within the concrete, and it's supposed to have a vandal-resistant, we hope, lid on it that is supposed to solve the problem. So they're out there running the tests. They've had pretty good results, but they're going to do another test in an area that's more visible, so it'd be more attractive to the thieves to see if it survives. But we're moving forward with the lighting system as it is, and we hope to be in construction in January or after January.
That's great news. And it's 15 years waiting, so that's great. That's really good. Any questions, my colleague, on the bike issue, the motion that we have on the first item?
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. On the restructuring, how much would that cost? Is there an administrative cost associated with
With
that?
the exception of the unfreeze of the position in DOT and additional rec and park staff to staff the committee, I think DOT is still going to maintain all the administrative duties. There are several rec and parks related issues relative to bicycling, and I don't know, how staff will be paid with, or they'll just attend meetings like the rest of us. But other than the unfreeze of the one position, I don't think there are any associated costs.
So they're all built in. We don't have to. There's really no. Okay.
Nothing new.
Okay, thanks.
Well, great. We are making great progress. I'd like to suggest that we concur with the Transportation Committee and approve the DOT recommendations and instruct DOT to report back in 6 months with a status report so we continue working together on both the transportation and land use issues.
It's attached.
Before we go on, Chair, I want to mention that we should probably get the concurrence of Councilman Ruiz on the previous items so that they can go as reports to
Okay,
council.
we'll do that. I just want to make sure I finish with this item. Thank you very much, folks. Mr. Baum would like to just share a few words with us. And again, congratulations,
Mr.
sir.
Reyes, I want to thank you for the kind word, but especially thank you for the tremendous effort for you and your staff have done for us in cycling. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Baum. Thank you for your commitment. Councilman, we went through the agenda really quick, and if I could just share with you the suggested action items. Item number 2, we can continue to December 2nd. Number 3, we have special. We have a speaker card on that one. Number 4, we can continue November 18th. And number 5, 6, and 7 are consent. Number 8, we have a special, 9 special, because they both have cards. But that would be the action of this committee with your concurrence. Okay. Thank you, sir. Yes?
Second on that.
Thank you. That was a second. So we'll move those items. That's the action of the committee. That takes us to item number 3, I believe, Roberto.
Yes, Councilman. Item 3 is a report from planning. It's an ordinance. It's a zone change ordinance relative to the construction of 2 apartment buildings for a total of 264 dwelling units in CD5.
Good afternoon, council members. Maya Zaitsevsky, Planning. This case was initially very controversial when we had a joint public hearing before the advisory agency and the hearing officer. But the applicant, the council office, the community, and planning staff worked together and made a project that everybody was happy with. The City Planning Commission approved it, and we're recommending that you go along with their recommendation. There's only been one change that I'd like to note, and that's a new condition regarding an agreement the applicant had with the neighbors. I gave it to the city clerk, but basically it's a new condition number 34 that we'll need to add to the zone change ordinance. It just says, prior to issuance of the first demolition or building permit for the project, the applicant shall guarantee the necessary funding for the neighborhood improvements on Lameda Street, referenced in condition number 29, such as speed bumps and or semi-diverter, not to exceed $20,000. Once requested and approved by the residents in accordance with standard LADOT policies and procedures, expenditures for any neighborhood improvements shall be made subject to the concurrence of Council District 5. So planning staff just recommends that you approve the recommendation by the City Planning Commission.
Thank you. Mr. Dave Rand.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Dave Rand, law firm Armbruster and Goldsmith. We're really just here to answer questions. We have members from our technical team as well in case you have any questions about the project.
Great. Well, first, I want to congratulate the council office, the staff for their hard work. I know there's a lot of creative tension sometimes, and congratulations to you to get to this point, and all parties concerned too. I don't have any questions. Any questions, Councilmember? No questions, so we could move on this item with the recommendations as stated by the staff. That'll be the action of this committee. Okay. Next item, Roberto.
Councilman, the next item is item 8, is an appeal by Wolfgang Vieth on behalf of the Northwestwood Village Residents Association. It has to do with an action of the West LA APC, which to approve adjustments and findings for the construction of a new fraternity house in CD5.
Okay. Hello, Linda.
Good afternoon, Honorable Subcommittee members. I'm Linda Smith with the City Planning Department, hearing officer on this particular appeal. You have the particulars of the appeal read to you. However, it is an appeal to overturn adjustment request.
Linda, can I ask you to speak into the microphone?
Yes, adjustment request and findings that were approved by the West Los Angeles Area Planning Commission on July 30th, 2008. Previously at that meeting, the West LA Area Planning Commission had heard several different variations for this project, which basically was a demolition of an existing fraternity house in the Westwood area adjacent to UCLA, and the construction of a new fraternity upgraded with additional guest rooms. In this case, we would be going from 16 guest rooms to 23 guest rooms, and also an increase in on-site parking from 0, as it is currently, to 28 parking spaces. Within the appeal related to the front yard, side yard, and rear yard adjustments basically all have to do with site design. Those items were discussed before the West LA Area Planning Commission, and the decision that's before you today is the ultimate decision that came out of their deliberation. Just very quickly, those adjustment requests within the front yard would allow a stairway in the front yard, would allow an ADA required stair lift in the front yard, and a deck landing. Currently, the proposal would have on-site or at-grade parking along the first level and the entry or access level decking directly above it on the first floor. Within the side yards, very quickly, we're talking about on the at-grade level, allowing the garage level to intrude into those side yards. That's to make room for the placement of 28 parking spaces on the site. And above that, we would have an intrusion into the side yard by the actual physical residential portion of the building. The West Los Angeles Area Planning Commission, as I said, heard several different variations with regard to site design. This is the ultimate, and this is the final design that they thought best suited this particular site. Their primary interest were getting additional on-site parking within the area, and also that the maintenance and security on the site be maintained. This particular use is a fraternal use, as I indicated, and they have been conditioned for 3 consecutive years to come in to meet compliance review, and that was very important to the West Los Angeles Area Planning Commission as well. So with that, that's just a brief overview of the decision, and I'll take any questions that you might have at this point. Thank you.
Any questions, Councilman?
Under similarly situated circumstances in other areas or anything else you may have dealt with like this, are these setbacks, have we done these type of setbacks before?
Yes, we have. In areas where there is an established front yard setback, we would try to uphold that established front yard setback. Within this block face, there is no predominant setback there because new construction has occurred throughout the block face. So if there's an established front yard setback, we try to reflect that as much as possible. Also, this project has not gone before the Westwood Design Review Board, and it is scheduled to go before the Design Review Board as well. I'm sorry, I didn't mention that earlier.
So it hasn't gone before the Design Review Board. Shouldn't it have gone before it comes to council?
It's almost a chicken and an egg kind of situation. The entitlement request really guide the siting of the building on the site. The Design Review Board recommendation, however, will look at the physical design of the structure. So it's more a design issue of the building as opposed to the entitlements, which are for placement and siting.
And the way the setback is recommended and approved, is that out of character with the rest of the block or the neighborhood?
It actually is not. As I indicated, there are other new developments on this very block. One site, just 2 or 3 sites down. And you will find with the newer development on the site, those buildings tend to be closer to the front yards, and in many cases also within the side yard requirements. And quite often that is to allow for parking on the site, to allow for as minimal grading as possible on the site, and to allow for those other fire department and ADA requirements, or building and safety requirements.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've been joined by Councilmember Weiss, and we just heard from the staff in the presentation on this case. No questions for the staff? No. Okay. We do have speaker cards on this item, and I'd like to ask the appellant, Mr. Wolfgang Veith, I believe. Please give us your name and address.
Yes, my name is Wolfgang Veith, V-E-I-T-H. I live at 476 Lane Fair since 1969. Been a long time member of this neighborhood. I have a couple of new pictures. There has been a new development with the property. The property next door has been torn down. The property next door on the north side has been torn down. So whatever is done here on design changes will affect the property next door. I have pictures to that here for the 3 council people. Also for your amusement maybe is 3 pictures of the building when it was built in 1929. Let me see. The history of this particular project, first of all, the North Village, where it's situated, is unique in Los Angeles in as much as it's been recognized by the city and the community plan, Westwood Community Plan, to need its own standard and its own ordinance, which it does have since 1987 or so. I was actually working with the Councilman Zef Yaroslavsky at the time to set the standards there. This particular project is a fraternity, of course, and it came in front originally in the design review board before they asked for any exemption, zoning variances, and so on. And the design review board had to tell them we can't make any decision unless you get a permit to get those exemptions, and that's what happened. Then they applied for originally a whole long list of exceptions, exemptions, zoning variances, zone changes, and they faced opposition, partly from me and other people in the community. And they changed their design slightly, but they still don't meet the North Village ordinance. Is it a hardship for the owner? I don't think so. I think they can do a little further adjustments. Is that my time?
Please, no, continue.
Yeah.
But let's see if we can
They
come
can
to a
a few
conclusion.
adjustments, I think, to really improve the situation. As I've shown in the pictures, recently the building on the north side has been torn down, another fraternity, and the result of this exemption that they require a zero setback on the side yard to build a garage in a sloped lot. The front of it faces the sidewalk, goes up towards the backyard, is that there will be a 15-foot or so wall facing the neighbor right at the property line. That's 9 foot of garage height according to their plans that they submitted, plus a 5-foot wall, a parapet wall for safety reasons. From that garage level, they have to step down for emergency exits, of course, and they want to put the stairs basically in the front yard. So the front yard will be largely concrete. The other open space inside courtyard is also basically concrete because they want to play basketball there. So they will not be able with the existing project to meet all the design standards that are set forth in the ordinance of open space, landscaping, and so on. I suggest that the requirements be changed, that in the front part of the property, not the whole part, but in the front part where you have the exposed to the neighbor's side yards, that the building will be set back the regular 6 feet, maybe the first 30 feet. And then the backyard, which is largely underground, then it doesn't really make any difference where the garage level goes to the side yard or completely the backyards. The backyards, they don't want to go to the full back because they want to save cost, which is non-standard in the North Village because usually even 2 levels down, they go right to the property line because it's underground. It doesn't bother anybody. So they could do that here too. And just move the garage further back, move the parking spaces further back. They could also not build a boxy garage. That is more a design review board. But if you don't grant the zero side back on the side yard in the front part of the property, the first 30 feet, and reduce the depth of the deck, which goes way over the front yard, over the legally required front yard, and thereby nullifies the open space requirements. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Okay, our next speaker is George Seidel. So the 2 speaker cards I have. You'll answer questions? Okay. Any questions, my colleagues?
No, I appreciate the comment from the individual who lives there, but I've never seen a Westwood issue that's had such community support. So I'm.
You need the microphone so you can record it.
It was a brilliant statement, but I forgot it. I move support of this.
Okay. So to deny the appeal.
Yes.
Okay. So that'll be the action of this committee, and you have 3 votes for that, and that'll be the action. Thank you very much. Our next item, Roberto?
Yes, Councilman. The next item is an appeal by Doug Haynes from La Mirada Avenue Neighborhood Association. He's appealing the action of the Central APC as relates to the approval of a variance and the adoption of findings for a 5-unit small lot subdivision for single-family purposes in CD 13.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. How you doing? My name is Theodore Irving. I'm with the planning staff. For the record, the applicant, the subdivider, has submitted a letter to our department indicating that they are withdrawing or they are no longer pursuing this development. We've acknowledged the receipt of that letter. You should have a copy that they are no longer pursuing the project. So at this point, what we were suggesting or recommending is that the action be just received and filed, and that no action be taken by this committee.
Okay. Mr. Doug Haynes?
Hi, Doug Haynes with the Lamarard Avenue Neighborhood Association. Since it's been terminated, this is now, as my understanding, a moot issue, so that's certainly acceptable to us.
Thank you very much. So we'll receive and file this item, and that takes care of all the speaker cards on that item. It's been received and filed. Anybody here for public comment? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.